Welcome to the Book of Life, a show about Jewish books, music, film, and web. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. Sally Wiener Grotta is the author of Jo, the story of a mixed-race Jewish woman who comes back to her hometown in the Poconos in spite of her vow never to return. Sally came by my library for an interview while she was visiting Florida. Unfortunately, we were rather rushed because of a tornado warning, but we managed to have a fascinating, if brief, talk. So I'm here with Sally Wiener Grotta, who is visiting Florida, and we're here at my library at Congregation B'nai Israel. Welcome, Sally.
Well, it's great to be here, Heidi.
So tell us a little bit about your book, JoJo.
JoJo is it's a story of a young mixed-race Jewish woman who is raised by her white Christian grandparents in a small village that is entirely white and entirely Christian. And as a young black woman, she experienced great prejudice and developed quite an anger, her own sense of prejudice, because prejudice is a two-way street. She vowed that she would never return, but she returns when her grandmother passes away, and she spends 1 week, 8 days, in this village to sit Shiva for her grandmother, for her Christian grandmother, who, by the way, supported her Judaism, and to get rid of the family estate. During that 1 week, she has a horrible run-in with the white boy who broke her heart, and also comes across a bully who threatens worse. She also uncovers a secret that her grandmother kept from her that makes her question her understanding of the prejudice that scarred her. And so it's a bit of a mystery of the heart, actually.
Okay, nice description.
Thank you.
I listened to your interview on Minority Counterpoint. So I know that this book comes from your passionate feelings about the differences between people that cause prejudice. So I'm just going to set you loose to talk about that.
I think that so often prejudice is the uncertainty of meeting a stranger. You don't really know how to talk to that person. You're afraid of misconnections. We distrust because we're distrusted. It starts to spiral out of control. I walk into a beautiful temple. I'm at home. It's my tribe. I know what to expect. I know that people may not like me, but they'll accept me. I mean, the one-on-one, you never know. But they know who I am initially. If I were walking instead into a black Baptist church and they knew I was not only white but Jewish, how would they react to me? They might be overwhelmingly welcoming, but there's that tribal barrier that we all have to overcome. I've been in many churches, black churches, where I have been openly welcomed because we all are reaching across that divide, that racial ethnic divide. But we need to do it more as a society, and we need to have more of a dialogue and an honest dialogue about our uncertainties and our fears, because we all feel it. The tribal instinct is very strong, and there was a reason for it. There was a survival reason for it in previous years that we don't have now. But now our survival must be to break through.
Talk a little bit about the inspiration that caused you to write this novel.
Oh, my goodness. There are so many influences, I was raised in a very liberal background. I had a wonderful rabbi at Rodef Shalom in Philadelphia, Rabbi David Weiss, who introduced us to everybody. And then I was educated by the Quakers. So I did not have that experience of I belong only in this circle. Now, I was very shy, but I still knew that the only way to meet people was to get out there and go past that shyness. So my first week in college, I was in the cafeteria for my first meal, feeling very uncomfortable, and I saw a table full of young women laughing and enjoying themselves. and I went over to sit with them, and they made me feel very uncomfortable. They were a group of black women who were enjoying themselves being themselves, and they were just a few black women in a sea of white. I realized at that moment that there was something wrong with this scenario, that neither of us should be seeing each other, but we do see, the first thing we see is the skin color. That's the first thing we see of anybody. So that memory ate at me. But then there's an image in my mind, Heidi, that comes to me so often. I would say at least weekly throughout my entire life, and it's the picture of a newborn nursery in a hospital. And you look at these tiny bundles of unshaped humanity. Which one is going to be the philanthropist, the teacher, the artist? Which one is going to be the drug dealer, the murderer? What takes this tiny bundle of hopes and potential and make him or her hate, or make him or her distrust, or make him or her love? These are the kind of questions that just keep me up all night, and I have to do something, so I write. I write to try to understand, to try to make sense of our human condition, because it confuses the heck out of me.
Okay, great. Thank you. So you gave your character Judith many layers of being an outsider. Her race, her religion, her country of origin, even being a city girl living in a rural place. And at the same time, she's an insider because her family has deep roots in town. So talk about that conflict and why you gave Judith so very many aspects of outsiderhood.
I'm sure when you speak with other authors, they'll tell you that's who she is. When she was born in my head, she was half white, half black, half Christian, half Jewish, and yes, her father was a Frenchman. I can't help it. That's just the way she was born.
Okay.
I probably, if I psychoanalyzed myself, I could probably see that I did know a mixed-race woman who was not Jewish, who had a German father, but he wasn't the black element. Her mother was Haitian. I have no idea why I did it. That's who she was. I had to give her a reason to feel superior. She does. She is a bigoted, opinionated woman. And it's first person, so right away you know you can't trust the narrator. But she has reason to be angry. She has reason to be opinionated, but she really is. And I needed to give her some kind of sense of superiority. And being a young French woman, cosmopolitan, sophisticated, in this tiny mountain village in Pennsylvania, it fits. It works.
Okay. Talk about Black Bear, Pennsylvania as a setting.
It's a funny place because, you see, my husband and I live in the Poconos, which is where it's set. And we live in a lovely little village that is not this prejudiced, although there's very strong elements everywhere where there's a homogeneous populace. Mm-hmm. But it is a lovely community. So anybody who's listening from Newfoundland, you are not Black Bear. But I'm married to an author, Daniel Grotta. He and I have this intellectual relationship as well as all the other wonderful relationships. So about 15 years ago, as an intellectual game, we started creating the town of Black Bear, based in part on Newfoundland. We would gossip about, the fire hall antics and politics and the foibles of the kennel ladies, the dog kennel ladies. And it was just a fun game. And then he created a book. It became much more than a game. He created a novella called Honor. It's the story of Jeff Smith, who is haunted by his actions or lack of them during the Vietnam War. And he is forced to face his past. No matter what side of the divide you were on in the Vietnam War, it fit. And it actually starts that conversation again of what it is to be honorable and what it is to feel guilt. So I took what he had started with Black Bear in Honor, and I took Jeff Smith, the protagonist, made him an important secondary character in JoJo, and his charming curmudgeon of a father-in-law, A.H., who is actually JoJo protagonist's cousin of her grandmother's generation. So I took them, and they became part of JoJo. At the same time, I extended the geography. It became a slightly larger village. I followed the rules that you do in world building, where I had to be honest to what he had already created, but I could extend it. So I introduced a small synagogue that had come into town. Initially, they met in Judith's grandfather's now closed drugstore until they could afford to build their own little temple. They built the temple. So Rabbi David and his wife Rebecca became important characters. Not all the community was very welcoming to the synagogue, so that element goes in there. But so Black Bear is this village that we continue to write in and explore. It's a village where we set people that we learn to care about into difficult situations, but then because of it being a small town, sort of like a Gibbsville or Grover's Connors, Thornton Wilder and O'Hara, the intimacy of a small town gives you a richness to mine as far as ethical, social situations go. And you can pull those and create great plots that hopefully are meaningful to the reader. So that's what Black Bear is. And it's ongoing. It's continuing to grow.
Cool. You are a fine arts photographer as well as a writer. How does one art affect the other?
Very, very deeply. Very, very deeply. There's a core of me inside. I'm pointing to my gut right now. There's a part of me that lives, breathes story. How I do it, how I express it is either through my fine art photography or through my writing or through my storytelling, because I love just sitting and telling stories. But I write like a photographer and I photograph like a writer. This is what critics have said to me. My photography is narrative. I'm trying to find the moment, the frozen moment that tells you a large story. And in my writing, I look for the small details that, as a photographer, that defines the moment. The little details that you see around you that maybe you don't see, but you experience fully. As a writer, if you can bring that kind of texture into it, then, like with my photography, I'm hoping the reader sees what's in my mind's eye. And it also gives added dimension.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to say?
Well, my next novel is not a Black Bear novel. It is called The Winter Boy, and that'll be coming out next autumn. It's set in a Neverwhen, a post-apocalyptic society. JoJo's obviously has Jewish elements. You and I will see the Jewish elements in The Winter Boy, but other people might not. It's because it's, again, questioning how can post-apocalyptic society of women create peace? And I have them do it by seducing the young men who will be the leaders and using storytelling and dialogue, the same kind of dialogue we learned in tourist study, to explore what makes an enemy. Why is that man your enemy? Those kinds of issues. And, of course, there's a plot where there's threats and people are not who they seem to be and all that. So that's going to be my next book that's coming out.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Sally Wiener Grotta, thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you, Heidi. It was a delight, and I wish we had more time.
There are so many ways to connect with the Book of Life. Fan us at facebook.com/Book of Life Podcast. Follow us at twitter.com/Book of Life Pod. Email us at bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 561-206-2473. You can also listen to the latest episode by phone at 916-313-3820. And, of course, find links to everything at bookoflifepodcast.com. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida at cbiboca.org and is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilock Makers Klezmer String Band at freilockmakers.com. Thanks for listening and happy reading.